Hey everybody out there, welcome to my channel. I'm Organic Galaxia here, getting ready to do some tarot reading. Oh my god, so yesterday I did this huge tarot reading. I wanted to ask about these crazy right-wing militias. I did this reading, I was asking all these questions, and at the very end, on my last card, my phone died. All that work for nothing. You can't put a video up with the last card, being gone and the ending just falling off. So, boo. But I'm back today and I'm gonna, it gave me a chance to kind of refine my questions, focus in a little bit. But yeah, I want to ask Spirit about these crazy ass right-wing militias. Because, of course, we know what happened to Governor Whitmer. That plot got foiled, thank goodness. We know Trump's calling out the Proud Boys, right? And this group, the Whitmer group, was a different group, Wolverine Watchers or something like that. We know that during the debates, Trump called out his supporters, after refusing to condemn white supremacists and telling him to stand by. I don't know, 10, 20 minutes later in the debate, he called on his supporters to watch the polls, right? Watch the polls and make sure no fraud happens. And that is voter intimidation, and it's illegal. So there's that issue. And also I saw a video, which I'm going to try and find, and if I find it, I'll put the link in the comments. But I saw a video of Don Jr. calling for Trump's army, was talking about Trump's army, that they need to basically start getting together. And he's calling for them to organize, which again, voter suppression, voter intimidation. It's like he's taken steps to get this civil war started. I think it's treasonous. So all of these issues, right, is going right to the heart of these crazy ass right-wing militias. And I want to take a look at that. And I'm going to start out. Actually, before I do that though, I wanted to mention, I did a couple readings on Nancy Pelosi. She was sitting on some information and the time wasn't right, but she was sitting on it and it came out, was it yesterday? The 25th Amendment. Basically, she wants to put in place a commission to assess future presidents' well-being and fitness for office, to sort of give Congress a role in being able to remove an unfit president. So I know she was saying it wasn't about Trump, and in a way it wasn't, in that it can't apply to Trump. We can't use this on Trump because it's too late. The voters are going to have to vote him out. But she did say it was him that made them realize that this process needed to be created and put in place. And, let's make no mistake about it. This is completely because of Trump, his unfitness for office, and the refusal of the Republicans in Congress to do their duty and remove an unfit president. So good for her. And I don't know if it's going to succeed or not, but I think, it's a kind of a big deal. It's an amendment. So I think that's what Nancy was sitting on, waiting for the right time to make that happen. Back to crazy ass militias. The first question I want to ask about is Trump's army. Don Jr. calling for Trump's army. Is he trying to get arrested? It's probably on Fox. Obviously I'll find out if I can find that link. And their supporters watch that, probably think it's the greatest idea since white bread. But okay, Trump's army. Don Jr. calling for Trump supporters to form Trump's army. What is that all about? What is that all about? What is Don Jr. doing calling for Trump's army? Spirit, show us what we need to know. about Trump's army? Is this a thing? Is it a bunch of crap? Is he going for a civil war? Is he calling for militias to organize? Spirit, show us Trump's army. What is this all about? All right, let's take a look at what Don Jr.'s doing. Alrighty. Trump's army, Don Jr. being a big treasonous bastard. All right. So first off, we're going to, with the Magician card, you know, this card is, you know, it's about magic, yes, but it's about manipulation. It's about manifesting something into reality. Don Jr. and Trump et al., is trying to manifest Trump's army. So that's what it is. He's working the magic. He's working the tools, whether it's the Fox microphone or just what have you, the media. He's trying to manifest this. He's trying to manifest this army into being merely by calling them out, Trump's army. What is challenging them is finances. So they need money in order to mobilize, right, and organize, arm themselves, whatever it is that they're planning on doing, they're needing money. And this is regarding money changing hands. So this is a challenge for them. They're going to be looking. They're going to be looking for some monetary assistance and support here. This card of heavy burdens is, I think, what's overriding it with heavy burdens, this is becoming more and more difficult. So the video I saw of Don Jr. was several days ago. I don't think it was very new in that it wasn't like today or yesterday. This is going to become increasingly difficult for him to pull this off because of what happened with Governor Whitmer, the FBI, and all the law enforcement, you know, just stopped that plot. So they were trying to attack law enforcement as well. So that's definitely going to get their attention and response, right? So I think because all eyes are on them right now, and they are being called terrorists, you know, the charges put against at least the first 6 and some of the other 7 men were terrorism-related charges. So this is going to become increasingly difficult. And then, of course, it's also telling us that any success that Don Jr. has in pulling Trump's army together is going to end up being a heavy burden for him to bear. It's going to be a very heavy burden. He's going to have repercussions for this. So, in the past, Trump calling, you know, Don Jr., DJ, let's call him DJ, calling for this army, he was working, he thinks, from a position of strength. So this is what these people are attracted to in Donald Trump. They see him as a strong man, all right? He's that authoritarian leader, that aggressive, you know, willing to be violent, you know, calling out to you know, I'm trying to remember some of the specific things that Trump said to foment violence, but he's done that. He's a strong man. They see him as a strong leader. They like his strength. They like his aggressiveness. And this is part of what they respect in him and why they will show their show of strength in in organizing together to meet this call. Where they're going to be moving into with the sun card is being exposed. So the sun is going to shine down on their actions. They're not going to be able to hide, be on the down low, be underground. This is how people like this operate, right? They can't operate under the light of day because their activities are illegal. That's what sleeper cells are, right? They have to be on the down low and hidden away. And this card is indicating that we're going to be moving into a place where we're all aware of what's going on. You know, Don Jr.'s not the sharpest pencil in the box, and he called out for Trump's army in the media, in the public sphere, for everyone to see. Not the smartest move. And partly because of that, and partly because of this Michigan plot, the sun is shining on them. Everything's going to be revealed, okay? So what they're focusing on internally here, DJ and these Trump's army groups, is money and legacy. So they're going to be, this is very often Trump organization, Trump family legacy money right here for me. So I think they're going to be back channeling communications with DJ and Trump, who knows who, you know, whatever those intermediaries are. They need some funding. They need some money. If they want to be King Trump's army, King Trump is going to have to fund them. And this is what this card is telling us. And this is what they're initially going to have to start being focused on. Getting those funds, getting that money, being funded by their king. And here it is. In their environment, they're looking, this 9 here is bringing them the financial resources and financial opportunities they're looking for. This is an offer. However, this is the slowest moving knight of the deck. So this money's going to be slow to come. Very slow to come, maybe even too late. But yes, money is on its way, slowly coming towards them. And because this is an environment, you know, yes, it might come from Trump et al., but there are other crazy ass groups and people out there, right? So they might be getting income streams from more than one place. Hopes and fears. So their hope with the 2 of Pentacles is that balancing act, that they can do what they need to do, right? Organize, fund themselves, plan, strategize, do all those practical things that they need to do. Balance that with staying on the down low, staying out of the media, not being found out by the FBI, you know, staying secret, staying hidden. That's very hard for any of these kind of groups to do, is organize, plan, and execute without being found out by the law. So it's a balance. It's a balance. And with these coins, their very survival is depending on that. And with the outcome, 7 of Cups. So the outcome is suggesting that. So this is a card of illusion and delusion. And yes, I feel like these people are certainly deluded. They don't have a clear grasp on reality. But in the outcome position, I think the sense that I'm getting with this outcome for Trump's army is that they're going to end up being sort of tricked and lied to. In other words, you know, so when the FBI investigates these kind of groups, right, they infiltrate. I guess that's where I'm going with this. They're going to be infiltrated. They're going to be lied to by these agents. They're going to be found out. They're going to be duped, and they're going to be tricked, and this is going to be their outcome. So in addition to that, some other potential illusions that this card could be indicating is this money, this funding. Maybe there's some lying around that. You know, maybe they're promised X amount of money, but they only get this amount of money, or they're promised this kind of resource. It doesn't come through, or it comes through at not the right time. I just think they're gonna get this on both sides, both from Trump, because he's a cheapskate and he doesn't like to give up money, and who knows, you know, maybe this is Don Jr.'s thing, and lots of promises, right? A lot of promises that just fall through, that don't, you know, all these things they see in these cups. Oh, we can get more weapons. Oh, we're gonna have money. Oh, we're gonna get, you know, training equipment. Whatever it is that they see in these cups, are just not going to materialize. Not going to materialize. And in addition, with they're also going to be squeezed on the other side by law enforcement, infiltrating them, finding them out, and, you know, kind of tricking them in order to be stopped, and whatever law enforcement's going to end up doing there, whether it's arrests and trials or just dispersing these groups. I don't know, you know, because law enforcement, in my humble opinion, has sort of failed when it comes to these right-wing militias, because they've been around a long time and doing a lot of damage in a lot of ways, you know, like with voter suppression or just racial intimidation. And so far they've been getting away with it. Showing up on the Capitol steps, was it Michigan, right? Before this thing happened with Whitmer, they showed up on the steps armed. Nobody did a damn thing about it. They were there to liberate Michigan, following their king's orders. All right, so that's a look at Trump's army via Don Jr. So where I want to go next is the polls. So Trump has asked them, come to the polls, poll watch, show up, make sure no fraud takes place, which is just another way of saying, hey, go and intimidate the Democrat voters, go and intimidate all those African-American voters, scare them away from the polls, right? Because any brown person or anybody voting for Biden must be fraudulent. That must be fraudulent, because he's everybody's favorite president. So crazy when he says that. That's so stupid. It's like, I'm sorry, aren't your polls crashing? Okay. Polls. Poll watching. Here. What's going to happen at the polls? Are we going to have some smooth voting? Are these Trump followers going to show up at the polls and create some violence? Are they going to intimidate? Is there going to be any incidents? I want to see the polls. Spirit, please show us what we need to know about Trump supporters showing up at the polls. All right, let's take another look. I'm going to do a what the actual fudge reading on this one. Okay, so what the actual fudge? So it's what the actual fudge, question mark, exclamation point. So what we know about this situation here with the Seven of Wands and the Three of Pentacles, and this question of poll watching, okay, is number one, we've got fighting. We've got fighting and people defending themselves. So there's definitely going to be some strife, some self-defense happening right here. And this is kind of telling me, because there was a contract made to build something. There was an agreement made for work to be done. So the Three of Pentacles is definitely around building, making contracts with skilled people to build something. That's the challenge here. So, I think part of me is thinking what is being built here is election day. With every single one of these votes helps build a new presidential administration. Every single vote helps create something new, builds a new house for us as Americans. And in this sort of in this challenge position, I feel like, so that's what they're doing. They're fighting and fussing about this sort of building a new beginning. Here in the actual position, so what's real about this, what's actually real with this 10 of Cups are the voters. So people are going to the polls very happily, casting their ballots for this new happy beginning, right? These are happy voters. This is a joyous celebration. We've been waiting so long. This has been a very long 4 years, and we're finally able to go to the polls and to start something new, do our due duty as voters. And so that is a core part of, what this reading is about, right? These voters go into the polls very happily casting their ballots. What's wrong with this situation is the Tower moment. So this is when everything comes crumbling down. And yeah, I'm definitely getting a sense of these people wreaking some havoc at some of these polls. But instead, it's not throwing the voters off their game. They're creating their own destruction. They're creating their own destruction. Their actions are undermining Trump, Republicans, this administration. Because he called for them to go to the polls, any incidents, any problems are going to be laid at his feet. And this Tower indicates to me, yeah, it could be very serious. There could be at least one really horrible incident that just blows this whole thing up, that it blows up in Trump's face, that he called for these supporters to come watch the polls. So I think, Trump is in a Tower moment right now. Everything around him is crashing down. And this is going to be one more explosion, right? One more bomb, one more thing that helps tear that edifice down. So what the question mark here is telling us where we need to look for more information. And we have the upside down Magician. So I'm going to say this is Trump right now, maybe Don Jr. too, because he was calling for that, Trump's army. Basically, this is someone who was trying to manifest something, trying to magically kind of create this thing, but failed. Either they failed in the manifestation, or what they created turned bad, turned upside down, turned super negative. So it's a failure. It's a failure in its creation. Either it never gets created, or their creation fails at its purpose. And exclamation point, what action needs to be taken with the Hierophant? So the Hierophant is your traditional government institution, right? The government, the church, the traditional foundations that we all rely on. It's a very conservative card in that it's all about tradition. So feel into that. I think this is just the government, those people who are in authority really need to bring polling back to what it's intended to be, to return us to these stable norms, to respect the voting, respect the voter. All of these polling places are sacred places in a way, in that we're all casting these really incredible ballots. And this idea of sending supporters there and wreaking some havoc, the suppression and the intimidation and all this kind of thing is so against the very norms and foundations of what we expect in our government, that they're going to have to rebalance that and bring it back into this sense of tradition, formality, just stableness, stability. That's the action that needs to be taken. We need to make this process stable, secure, traditional, what it is supposed to be, a sacred process for all Americans. The core foundation of our democracy is voting. That's, what this card is sort of, the energy it wants to bring into this situation is voting and voters are a sacred foundation of our democracy that has to be maintained. That's the action that we need to take, is to support that, to gird that up, to make sure that this never falters. So my question, though, again, are there going to be any incidents? Is there going to be any problems at the polls? I would say between the self-defense card and this tower, we could expect to see some intimidation and some suppression going on. Maybe, hopefully not suppression, because those voters are out. They are thrilled to be able to cast their ballots. Both sides, right? People voting for Trump are thrilled. People voting for Biden have been counting the days. So I don't know how much suppression will actually take place, but intimidation is here. This is a fighting card, so this does indicate some kerfluffle here. I'm going to say, yeah, we might see a little something, something. But the whole situation is just adding to Trump's tower moment. This is going to be laid at his feet. He's responsible for this by calling out his supporters to interfere with the voting process at the polls. Okay, and what is this all really coming down to with Trump, right? Calling all his supporters, Trump's army, refusing to commit to a peaceful transfer of power, calling on Barr to start arresting and jailing Democrats. Where is this all trying to go to? Well, Civil War. That's where I'm going with this. He's trying to create a civil war. He wants to mobilize Trump's army so that in the event he loses the election, or of course what he would say is a fraudulent election, that they will fight for him to remain in power. That his supporters will mobilize and arm themselves and fight for him to stay in power. And that Barr is going to use his power to protect them and arrest Democrats. The enemy, right? The enemy that the Biden administration, which they're going to call fraudulent. So yeah, this is Trump trying to start a civil war. Initially, my feeling on this, my personal feeling on this is that Trump is so dumb. He is so inept. Don Jr., his kids are so dumb. They're so inept that the best that they'll be able to do is get some ragtag group together who, yeah, might start some trouble, but I don't see this actually being a civil war. This would be like a sad facade of a civil war. You know, a couple dumbasses in their camo and some guns fighting for their king, like technically be called a civil war, but it's not really, because unlike our actual Civil War, you had your North and you had your South, and there was, you know, they wanted to sort of geographically separate the United States into two countries, right? Where you just can't do that these days because Democrats and Republicans are enmeshed across the nation. Every state has everybody. There's no geographical element to an outcome for this kind of civil war. And there's just so many Americans, right? There's like 350 million of us. There's just not enough. There's not enough of these kind of militia people to really make anything concrete happen. It's just a facade to me. It's just a joke. But, you know, people are really scared, and Trump really is out there trying to organize these groups. And, you know, as we can see from what happened in Michigan, some of them might actually give this a go. So let's ask Spirit to show us through the cards. What would a civil, how successful is Trump going to be making this civil war? Is there going to be any success in this at all? Or is this just a facade? You know, is this a joke? Is this a sad, pathetic attempt where nothing will happen? Or are enough people going to make this a viable civil war? I mean, just, it's hard to even say those words. It's so ridiculous. But that, you know, I want to ask the cards and into Spirit, into those energies. There's militia groups out there. There's a lot of anger, a lot of hatred, a lot of racism. They're armed. They're cells that communicate with each other. They may be getting some funding. Are they going to start a civil war? All right, let's see what the cards say. Interesting. All right. Okay, so we're going to start off this looking at the basic situation here. Abuse of power. Absolutely. Trump's 4 years have been nothing but abuse of power, but calling on an army, calling on his supporters to mobilize, watch polls, do whatnot, completely abuse of power. And it's one that's so horrible that, you know, you could see these parties, they throw down their swords in disgust and walk away. So, yes, this is a brutal, vicious battle right here. It's a brutal, vicious battle. But yet, you know, I'm definitely getting the sense of they're going to lose some support there. There's just going to be some people who are just so disgusted with this, they don't want to have anything to do with it. So there's going to be some people, you know, if this is the militias here, there are going to be members who They don't want anything to do with this. They're going to throw down their swords and guns. They're going to walk away. These might be whistleblowers or informants or witnesses or what have you. But yes, this is a very treacherous situation. What's crossing them is an ability to organize, an ability, is skill sets. So I think we all know that a lot of former military people kind of end up in these sort of militia groups. One of the men arrested in the Whitmer attempt was military. And, they are able to bring some training, some skill sets to these militias, but I don't think it's enough. They just don't have the capability to organize, to plan, to create sort of contracts with each other, to work together. I'm not saying they can't, but this is their challenge. This is their ongoing challenge, is formalizing to be effective. They have to all build this together. They have to come to, all these various militias are probably going to start trying to come together, but this is going to be very challenging for them. They just don't have the expertise. These are just dumbass country bumpkin Americans. Not all from the country, of course, but they're not the sharpest pencils in the pack here. That's their trouble. So what's overriding this information, what's overriding this question of a civil war, is the Page of Pentacles. And the Page of Pentacles, that's a communicator. So there's some news there. There's some communication there about money. So a big part of their problem is going to be funding, resources, the cash money they need to do what they need to do. They're going to be out there asking for money. They're going to be needing funding. This is going to be overriding this situation, and I'm definitely feeling this is a vulnerability of exposure. Once they're out there trying to get money in, this is a way, this is communication they have to put out in the world that law enforcement can find and track. It's a feeling I'm getting with this. Any communication you put out there is meant to be heard, and that makes them vulnerable for detection. But overriding them is this call out for funding, for sourcing. Foundational to them with the King of Swords is, this is the ultimate law enforcement. So the way I'm feeling with this card is this is what they want to be. This group, if they try for a civil war, they want to be the ultimate arbiter of justice. They want to wield the sword and, put their beliefs of what justice is and what they think the law should be. And, they want to hold that role. They're not respecting government, right? They're not respecting law enforcement. They're not respecting the authority that's already in place. They want to usurp that. They want to create their own government. They want to, like that they wanted to do with Governor Whitmer, try her for treason, which has a death sentence, so they're probably going to lynch her, right? They want to be judge, jury, and executioner. And where they're coming from with this Seven of Cups reversed, it's funny because this was just in the last reading, where they're coming from, or the energy they just got done with, well, are just, basically the card is saying having your illusions exposed, having your illusions fall apart. You know, your deceptions, your illusions, your lies just start falling apart, which indicates a return to some sense of reality or some truths, because these are all lies and illusions, but it's upside down, which means that it's not fooling anybody, or let me think here. This deluded thinking, this weird ideology, these weird ways of seeing the government and the people, this is going to just be sort of their downfall. This is what's doing them in. They just have an upside down view of the world, an upside down, they're just not, they just don't have a good sense of reality. They're not seeing anything as it truly is. And I feel like it's getting worse. Maybe it's not so much maybe seeing reality, is it these delusions and falsehoods and lies, they're so bad that it gets down into the root of what's wrong with them. It gets down into the root of what prompts them into action. So it's just so malicious. Where they're moving into, excuse me, with the Page of Wands, again, another messenger bringing another message. But with this Wands, it's more of a communication about action. So I think what this is telling us right here is they're going to start receiving some direction, some action, some, direction on how to move forward, some instruction. So someone is going to come to them with direction, guidance on how to proceed with their activities. Okay. What are they focusing on right now is a partnership. So right away, I'm thinking this is the partnership between Trump Jr. and Barr. Maybe not everyone in the administration, I think, would be willing to go this route. That core group of crazy bastards, right? So Trump, Don Jr., especially. And these militias are coming together, are creating a bond. So in other words, Don Jr. is calling out for Trump's army, right? He's trying to mobilize Trump's army. So this is Don Jr. calling for Trump's army. This is connecting the militia groups with the Trump people. These militias have been out in the world for a really long time. They're nothing new. They've been around since the beginning of the country. There's always been militias, but no president or leader has ever, to my knowledge, called out for them to mobilize and work at the behest of the president. But that's what Don Jr. did right here, and that's what Trump himself is doing. So they're cementing the leader-army relationship, is what this is. In the environment with the Emperor, first, obviously, I want to go to Trump. Trump wants to be an emperor, so this is him sitting on his throne. But, I want to move away from that right now because I don't quite think that's what it is. The emperor is the strongest basis of our foundation. So I've been getting this card when I want to go back to our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, the founding documents that created our democracy, that nobody, not even Trump, can get beyond. As soon as you call something unconstitutional, that is the ultimate invalidation of something. that is what this emperor does. He can make something unconstitutional. This is the founding fathers of our nation, and this is what they are going to be fighting against. This is their environment here. Yeah, there's a lot of corrupt politicians. The Republican Party seem to be out of their minds right now. But the only way that you can have a civil war is to completely break the foundations of our democracy. That is not an easy task. That's not something that people who are deluded can do. That's not something some little ragtag band of misfits can really accomplish. So that's why I was saying I didn't really see this as a serious threat of civil war, because our foundations are strong. Our foundations are very strong. Regardless of what this president and these Republicans are doing right now, the only way to win a civil war is to completely break democracy. That would be very difficult. Hopes and fears with the Queen of Swords is a fear. That's the fear of being shut down by law. So this is justice. This, not the justice card, but this Queen of Swords, this is the sword of justice she's holding. It's a very bright, powerful, highly intelligent, strong leader is going to be beating this back. That's their fear, that they're going to be thwarted by law enforcement, that they're going to be thwarted by, I would say, the Justice Department, except Barr's heading that right now. So the fear here, yes, is that they'll be stopped by law enforcement. You know, unfortunately, on the flip side, as a hope, this could be their hope of support by the Department of Justice. This could be their hope that Barr is going to sort of allow a look the other way, not do his duty in stopping this. So there's both a hope and a fear here. You know, they're fearing valid law enforcement stopping them, but they might hope that the top law enforcement officer, Barr, is going to look the other way and let this debacle take place. Outcome with the 10 of coins upside down, 10 of pentacles upside down, is plainly speaking, this is a lot, Trump losing money. Losing this, because this card for me is Trump's family money, Trump organization money, his family legacy money. Upside down, he's losing that money. So this is Trump is going to lose because of this. He's going to lose. So if he invests any resources into this group, into these groups, he's going to lose that money. The repercussions and consequences of all this action coming back to Trump, he's going to end up losing money. Regardless of how this pans out, Trump's losing. He's losing. He's losing his legacy. He's losing his finances. He's losing his family inheritance. He's losing Trump organization money. He's going to bleed out because of this. So to kind of focus in on my question, is this really going to be a civil war? I don't see it, because they're dealing in a land of illusion and delusion. They're really firmly sunk into that cesspit of falsehoods. Very hard for them to get out of that. And here in our environment with this emperor, we have the very foundations of our nation. They're so strong. This little ragtag group of wannabes, they're not going to be able to overthrow the Constitution, undermine the Bill of Rights. You know, you can't take down the United States government unless you irreparably break it. And I just don't see anything in these cards that indicates that they have the ability to do that. I don't see any fighting. Oh, the first card was fighting, right? Was this abuse of power? So this is Trump and Don Jr.'s abuse of power, calling these supporters to rally for them in the event of a fraudulent election. Complete abuse of power. Oh, but I don't see it going anywhere. There's nothing in these cards that show it going anywhere. Justice is here, whether it's just the justice they fear or Barr trying to support them. It's in the hopes and fears category. It's nothing that's manifested. The only thing we're ending up with is a loss for Trump. Loss for Trump. So no, I'm going to say no. There's nothing that consequential happening here. Yeah, they're going to organize and they're going to cause some trouble and fuss and fart around. And so I'm not saying that nothing's going to happen, but I'm asking about civil war here, right? The overthrowing of the United States government, creating another government with Trump installed as a leader. That is just not anywhere near what's going to happen. And that's that delusion card. It's like, I think that's what this is saying here is they started out with a certain set of delusions, racial, economic, governmental. They believe just all these kooky things, but that's getting so malignant with them, so deeply embedded with them that it's turning them into these kind of criminals. I mean, not criminals in the traditional sense, like they're robbing in stores or anything, but this behavior it's diluted. It's diluted, and it's a sign of the magnitude of that delusion. But no, our democracy is very strong, even with all the attacks that it's going through. It's a very strong founding documents for our country. The foundation is strong. They're not going to be able to bring down the United States government. That's laughable. Okay, well, that's what I really wanted to look at today, or at least right now, with these crazy ass right-wing militias. What can we do to stop these? These people are just out of their minds. I certainly respect different points of view. I don't think everybody should be a Democrat or everybody should feel this way or that way, but you still need your wits about you. You still need to deal with facts. You still need to have opinions that are based on something logical and factual. And I would also say for the good of all, that doesn't want to see violence, doesn't support hatred. You can believe whatever you want to believe as long as you're not hurting anybody, as long as you love your fellow man, right? As long as we can all work together to create this diverse, interesting nation of people, of all kinds of people that believe all kinds of things. That can be such a wonderful strength, as long as there's always love at the foundation and respect for our fellow Americans. And that is the crux of their problem, that love and the respect is not there. They want to overthrow the system, and it's just not going to happen. They just don't have the strength, the funds, or enough people to do that. So I think we're good. Okay, so that's it for this reading, and I will see you all soon, okay? Have a great day. Bye, everybody.